A lady named Johanna wraps up a box and disposes of it inside the trash, after which she lets her daughter, Claire, ride her bike outside for a while. Since Johanna wants to return inside,
Go on, big girl.
her neighbor, Mrs. DeLuca, says she can watch her daughter for her. Johanna then heads inside, but as Claire returns, she sees that her mom has taken her own life. Many years later, Claire is still haunted by what happened to her mom. After waking up from a nightmare that reminds her of what happened, she prepares for school and sees her dad, Jonathan, leaving the house with his friend, Carl, to begin their work as dumpster divers. On her way to school, Claire greets Mrs. DeLuca and also passes near the house of her uncle, August. Since he needs to pick up the newspaper on the floor, Claire offers to help him, but as she turns her bike, she almost gets hit by a girl named Darcy, who is a school bully. Claire falls down as a result, and she hurts herself in the process.
Ow.
August then asks if she's okay, and she says she is. Shortly after, she leaves for school, but as she arrives, she sees Jonathan and Carl picking out things from a dumpster across the road. Claire feels embarrassed by this, so she goes to tell them to leave because they'll make people start looking at her weirdly. Jonathan doesn't see a problem in what they're doing, especially since they're just across the road, but Claire says people can still see them. After a while, Jonathan and Carl agree to leave, so Claire walks back to school. When she enters, she meets her friends, Meredith and June, who are excited to see Claire's design for an upcoming school event. After they see it, they commend her work, but Darcy passes near them and soils it with a cup of coffee. Even though Meredith looks angry, Claire chooses to ignore the bully and say nothing. While she's then looking sad in her Chinese language class, a boy named Ryan says sorry to her for what happened and mentions that he liked her banner. Claire seems pleased by this, but she soon gets distracted when a boy named Paul enters the class. Claire appears to have a crush on Paul, but he has never even looked her way. Later that day, during lunch, Darcy tries to bully Claire again, but this time she stands up for herself and insults the bully. Unfortunately, this eventually results in a fight, which ends with a teacher separating them. Meanwhile, Jonathan finds a strange box inside the trash of a rich house. As he believes that it will be valuable, he takes the box with him. Shortly after, Claire goes to see Mrs. DeLuca to help her find something to deal with the bruise from their fight with Darcy. After helping her, DeLuca then asks why Claire has no boyfriend. Claire sounds embarrassed, but she mentions that she currently likes Paul. DeLuca then advises her to at least speak to him to see if she has a chance with him. After a while, Claire heads home and gives her dad the food she bought for him and Carl. He then tells her that he got her an early birthday present, which is in her room.
I got you a little something, buddy. It's up on your bed.
Claire says she doesn't want any of the items he picked at dumpsters, but Jonathan says that this one is different. He, however, adds that if she doesn't like it, she can bring it back so that Carl can sell it. Following this, Claire finds the box on her bed and sees some Chinese words on it. Claire only manages to translate one of the words on the box as 7 wishes. This doesn't make sense to her, so she just drops it, especially since the box can't even be opened. Shortly after, Claire sees a post on Darcy's page insulting her and her father for the kind of work he does. This gets her angry, so she decides to try out the box to see if it's real. She then says she wishes Darcy could just rot. As she makes the wish while holding the box, her dog barks at the door. When she opens it, though, the dog refuses to come in, and he just keeps staring at the box. That night, while Claire is sleeping, the box opens by itself, and it turns out to be a music box, which starts playing by itself until it eventually stops and closes again. The next morning, Darcy wakes up and discovers that some parts of her body are starting to get rotten. She's disgusted by this, but just as she screams, one of her friends sees her and takes a picture. At school that morning, Claire sees a picture of what happened to Darcy, and this leaves her intrigued because she remembers wishing for it the previous day. Despite being happy to have gotten revenge on Darcy, Claire stays calm around her friends. Later that day, when she arrives home, Claire takes a closer look at the box and says that it has finally gotten her attention because of what happened to Darcy. After she then takes a picture of the Chinese words on it, she notices that her dog is missing. As she checks around the house for him, Claire eventually finds the dog dead. She's devastated by this because the dog was given to her by her mom, but Jonathan is there to console her. The next day, she then shows the picture of the Chinese words on the box to her Chinese language teacher to help her translate. After taking a look at the picture, the man says he doesn't quite understand the words, and that if she wants to translate them well, she'll have to see a scholar. As the teacher leaves, Ryan sees Claire and says he didn't know she was interested in ancient Chinese. He also offers to help her, but Claire ignores him because she doesn't have any money to pay for whatever he's offering.
Never mind.
Later that day, while having lunch, Claire can't help but stare at Paul, who is talking to his girlfriend. When she gets home that day, she feels lonely because her dog is no longer with her, so she picks out the music box and wishes for Paul to fall madly in love with her. The next day, while she's at school, Claire looks shocked to see Paul near her locker. As he then talks to her and seems to be interested in being friends with her, Claire cannot believe that the box has worked again. She gets even happier when she sees Paul ignore his girlfriend just for her. While this is happening, the music box opens again, and as it starts playing its music again, August is seen falling into his bathtub and hitting his head against the edge before dying. Later that day, Claire arrives home to hear that August has died. While Jonathan doesn't seem to care because he never wanted his daughter to get close to her mom's brother, Claire feels sad to hear what happened. Jonathan also adds that he's sure they won't make it into the rich man's will. On the way to her room, Claire accidentally hits some of the junk metals that Jonathan brought to the house. Claire's unhappy about this, and she says she doesn't understand why he keeps putting useless things inside the house. As she also says that it's embarrassing to see her dad work as a dumpster diver. Jonathan doesn't say anything and she leaves for her room. When she gets there, she seems really angry and picks up the music box again. She then wishes for her uncle to make her the sole beneficiary in his will. A while later, Jonathan receives a call from August's lawyer, informing him that August willed all his things to Claire.
You're never gonna believe this.
Jonathan immediately calls his daughter to inform her of what the lawyer just said. They both seem happy about this, and as they leave their house, Mrs. DeLuca looks sad to see them go. However, Claire says she'll come over to see her once in a while. Following this, Jonathan and Claire head to August's house. Claire immediately gets a car for herself, and since August has a lot of money, Jonathan tells his daughter to go shopping with her friends. Claire is so happy about this, and she happily enjoys a fun time with her friends, going from store to store to buy some luxurious items. The next day, Claire sees the music box open for the first time. As the music starts playing, Claire just continues to stare at it. While this is happening, DeLuca's hair gets stuck in the waste disposal sink at her house, and as it is accidentally turned on, her hair gets sucked in until she dies after breaking her neck. Just then, the music box stops playing, and it closes by itself again. Claire doesn't know what to think, but she just ignores it eventually. In the morning, Jonathan shows Claire some of Johanna's old paintings. As they then talk about her work, Claire asks if Jonathan knows why she killed herself. Even though he says he's still shocked by it, he adds that she likely had a big secret that was too big to deal with. Claire then asks if he thinks she'll end up like Johanna, but Jonathan tells her not to be bothered by it because she won't have any reason to hurt herself. That night, while Claire is sleeping, she suddenly wakes up from a nightmare in which she sees the music box looking scary. As she wakes up, she sees someone's shadow inside the house, so she runs to the balcony to see who it is. However, the person quickly hides near a tree, and Claire is unable to see anyone. The next day, she then sees Paul breaking up with his girlfriend. The girl doesn't seem pleased with this, and she even bumps into Claire in anger because she's clearly Paul's new love interest. Following this, Paul comes over to meet Claire to ask her out, and even though she's excited about this, she says she'll have to think about it first. Later that day in class, Claire starts to get worried that she has still been unable to translate the words on the box. She then goes to meet Ryan to ask for his help, and he says he has a sister named Gina, who is an ancient Chinese scholar. Since Ryan says they can meet Gina immediately, she agrees to follow him to the loft his sister is staying in. When they get there,
Hey Gina, it's me, let me up.
Gina mentions that the box looks like an ancient Chinese wish box. She also translates some of the words on the box, saying that it comes with 7 wishes. She adds that if the box gets abandoned, stolen, or thrown away, all the wishes will be taken back. There also appears to be a name on the back of the box. Gina translates it as Lu Mei, so they check online to find out who it is. Interestingly, they find out that Lu Mei is a woman whose family died in 1910 during a plague in China. Since the circumstances of her family's death were unfair to her because they were actually forced to quarantine inside a rail car where they died, Lu Mei took the family's music box and prayed for revenge at a temple where a demon answered her. Shortly after, Lu Mei got rich and got rid of her enemies, but she eventually died after killing herself years later. While taking a look at the box,
What do these numbers mean on the bottom?
Gina sees some other words she hasn't translated yet. She says she doesn't really understand them and that she'll have to text one of her friends for help. Following this, Claire and Ryan leave the loft. On their way home, Claire sees her dad picking things out of the trash, and this gets her pissed. She also confronts him about it because she doesn't understand why he's still working as a dumpster diver, even though they're now rich. Jonathan tries to explain himself, but Claire doesn't seem interested in listening to him. When she gets home, she then uses the box to wish for her dad to stop being embarrassing. This appears to work out quite fast. And the next day, Ryan becomes a saxophonist who plays so well to impress Claire and her friends. While this is happening, the music box opens again and starts playing. Elsewhere, Gina has just received the translation of the last words on the box, and the result scares her. She then goes outside her loft to call Ryan and inform him that the translation she received is creepy. His phone goes to voicemail, but before she sends him a message, she gets startled by the loud bang of a door that closes by itself. Her phone falls down the building as a result, and she returns to her apartment so she can make her way down to get it. On the way, she suddenly sees a weird demon image that scares her, so she trips and falls against the sharp point of a statue inside her apartment. She dies instantly, and the music box closes again, while Claire continues to enjoy her father's performance. The next day, Ryan goes to see Gina at home, but he finds out that she's dead. He then meets Claire at school and asks if she has already made any wishes with the music box. Claire doesn't understand why he's asking that, but Ryan says he just found out that the words Gina couldn't translate meant that any time a wish is made, a blood price is paid. Claire doesn't seem to understand, but she tells him to thank Gina for helping. However, Ryan says she's dead, and Claire is shocked to hear this. He then asks again if she has used the box, but Claire just ignores the question and walks away.
We're gonna be late for class, Ryan. Are you coming?
Later that day, after entering the school's cafeteria, Paul gets her to sit with him, and this leaves her friends shocked. As his friends also leave the table because they don't like Claire, she looks unhappy. When she gets home, she then sees a social media post insulting her, so she takes out the music box again and wishes to be the most popular girl in the school. Almost immediately, Claire is invited to a party by Paul, and when she gets there, everyone seems to be happy to see her. Just like that, she becomes the most popular girl at school, and this makes her happy. Later that night, though, she has another nightmare in which she relives the moment her mom died. As she wakes up, she sees someone inside her house, and this time, she chases him down. Unfortunately, the person hides again, and Jonathan sees her walking in the dark. She then tells him what happened, so he asks when she started noticing the person around the house. Before she responds, Claire realizes that it started after she got the box, so she immediately runs inside to hide it inside an air vent. The next day, she then goes to see DeLuca, but when she enters the house, she sees that the woman has been dead for days. The next day, Claire decides to come clean to her friends about everything that has been happening. Even though they initially sound pissed that she didn't tell them earlier, they eventually advise her to throw away the box. Claire says it means she'll have to lose all her wishes, but June says it's the only right thing to do. As Claire is then about to throw away the box, she hears her dad playing the saxophone, so she decides against it. Later that night, she meets her friends at a party, and when June asks if she threw the box away, she says she already did. Shortly after, Claire joins Paul inside his car, but after looking through his phone, she discovers that he's the stalker who has been coming to her house. Claire cannot believe this, and she says they need to break up. But Paul mentions that he's not ready to leave her yet. Almost immediately, the music box opens again, and June nearly gets burnt alive inside the party, but Meredith saves her.
Where is she? It's about to start.
Just then, June starts to think it's not a coincidence, but as Claire comes over to meet them, they eventually forget about it. Meanwhile, Jonathan is on his way to one of his shows when his car suddenly develops a tire fault. While he's fixing the tire, he almost gets hit by a speeding vehicle, but he quickly runs away and saves himself. Elsewhere, Meredith sees a fancy elevator and decides to try it out. While she heads up, June and Claire stay downstairs. Claire then confesses to June that she didn't throw away the box. June scolds her for this, and almost immediately, Meredith's elevator gets stuck. No one is able to help her, and as the elevator falls, she dies. June blames Claire for this, and as she feels sad, Ryan shows up and tells her to come with him. He then takes her to his room and tells her that he has already found out what happened to the other people who kept the box. As Claire sees that they all committed suicide, Ryan mentions that if she makes all her 7 wishes, she won't survive because the demon will take her soul afterward. He then tells her to get rid of the box, but Claire says it's hard for her to do that because she likes being a rich, popular girl. Ryan doesn't seem to get this, and he says that holding onto the box is not worth it. Following this, he tries to help her destroy it, but since it's unbreakable, Claire keeps it inside the air vent in her room. Later that night, Paul breaks into Claire's room, but luckily she wakes up before he does anything to her. Paul then tells her that he can't live without her, but as she still insists that she no longer wants him, he cuts himself with a knife and passes out. Claire then calls an ambulance to take Paul away. The next day, though, Claire realizes that someone has stolen the box from her. As she wonders what to do, Ryan suggests moving on with her life, since the box is no longer her problem. Almost immediately, some FBI agents arrive at the house to seize August's assets for not paying his taxes. Following this, Jonathan and Claire return to their old house.
Well, here we are.
Claire is not too happy about this, but she believes it's better to live her life without the box. The next day, Claire gets treated badly by her schoolmates, and she also feels sad about how everything has now returned to normal. After a while, she sees the music box inside June's locker, so she confronts her friend for stealing it. June says she only did it to stop Claire from using it again, but she forcefully tries to take it away.
No! Claire, no, stop it, Claire!
Unfortunately, she drags it from June just by the stairs, and her friend falls down and passes out. Ryan sees this and scolds Claire for still wanting the box. However, she tells him to leave her alone and that she wants the box because she misses everything she used to have. She also threatens to use one of her last 2 wishes on him if he doesn't back off. Later that day, when she arrives home, Claire then decides to wish that her mom never died. Almost immediately, Johanna enters her room with 2 young girls who turn out to be Claire's sisters. She's shocked by this, but she seems to enjoy seeing Johanna present in her life again. However, while she's checking her mom's old paintings, she sees the music box in one of them. Claire is shocked by this, but she realizes that the box is why her mom killed herself. As she blames her mom for her problems, Claire sees Jonathan helping Carl while he's using a chainsaw to cut a branch from a tree. Claire immediately tries to stop them because she knows how it ends, but unfortunately, she gets there late, and Carl accidentally decapitates Jonathan. Claire is terrified by this, but she quickly runs to her room to make a wish to return to her life before her dad found the box. Her wish immediately gets granted, and Claire looks happy to see her dog and dad alive. She also tells him to wait so that she'll follow him out of the house. On the way to join him, Claire calls Meredith and sounds happy to hear her friend again. She then heads out to hug her dad before they leave together while waving to Mrs. DeLuca, who is alive too. Shortly after, Claire offers to help her dad pick out some things from the trash. After looking around for a while, she sees the music box in the trash, so she hides it inside her bag. She then gives her dad some metal bars she found, and he looks happy to see his daughter supporting him. A while later, Claire arrives at school and immediately goes to meet Ryan. While she's talking to him about how she knows Gina and some of the things he likes, Ryan is surprised to see that she's even talking to him because she has always ignored him. Just then, Claire gives him her bag and tells him to help her bury the box inside. Ryan says he'll do it for her, and before she leaves, she tells him that she'd like to go on a date with him. Ryan is happy about this, and he agrees to have dinner with her. As she then walks away to meet her friends, Darcy accidentally hits her with her car, and Claire instantly dies, leaving everyone shocked, with the bully also complaining that she didn't see the girl on the road. After a while, Ryan decides to do what Claire wanted, but as he sees the box and translates a word on it as 7 wishes, he decides to keep the box for himself.